Okay, so in this video I will demonstrate how to create a dependency injection using the constructor. So here we have the application called tie coupling with several different components in it. So the idea here is that we want to make the view and presentation, which has a model view in it, to be not tightly coupled with repositories and underlying services, so that we can plug in different repositories that will do different things, such as providing the data from different sources and things like that. So in order to do this, first thing that we need to do is we'll go ahead and add another project here, and we'll call it a person repository interface, which will hold the interface for all our repositories. So I went ahead and I created a class library project, and I added another class which I named iPersonRepository.cs, and I made it into an interface here. So this interface, basically we want to hold our CRUD operation. So our person service currently holds all these methods that do our CRUD. So what I'm going to do, I can factor this to create an interface. So I refactored and here created an interface class inside of this project. So I'll just copy this and put it inside of our person service interface. As you can see, we need a reference to our shared objects, which hold our person object. So I do the people viewer that shared objects, and we have our interface here. Now what we need to do is we need to implement this interface in our repository class. So our repository, which is inside of a person repository service, we have a class here called service repositories, and we want to implement this interface to this class. So this class actually becomes a child of this interface, or implements it. So in a sense, it's like a child of it. So we implement this interface that we just created, and now all of the methods that we created in our interface are actually instantiated or defined in our actual service repository. The next thing that we need to do is in our constructor, we can see that we have a reference to service repository, the actual concrete class. So what we need to do here is we need to reference our interface that we just created. So we change this to reference our interface, and now we are newing up our service repository still, but through the interface, which is a one step towards decoupling. So now we're not really instantiating, we're instantiating the concrete through the interface, meaning that already we could have different things more easily pluggable in. But our next step towards injecting here is to go ahead and inject our iPerson repository right here into our constructor. And then assign it to a variable here. And I haven't really run this project, so I'll go ahead and try to build and run next. So as I tried to build at this stage, after I changed the constructor, we can see that our view itself, which is XAML, is trying to instantiate the model, and it's trying to send constructor, calling the constructor without any parameters, so it's breaking. So what we need to do here, what I could do just to build it, I could go ahead and instantiate the repository here, but then what we're doing is we are making a connection, or we are coupling it with the repositories and therefore services, and this is our view, so that's definitely something that wouldn't belong there. So just to mention before I continue how we already, by injecting this iPerson repository, we're using a technique of making it someone else's problem. So we're kind of factoring this out, but it's still going to have to be instantiated somewhere. So we're kind of factoring out. Now the view is trying to call our view model, but it can't because it needs to instantiate it. And then if you don't want a view to instantiate it, we have to have it instantiated somewhere. So what we do here is we create a composition root. It's like a bootstrapper application that composes all our objects. So I created another folder, and I moved people viewer project into this folder, and I created another project, people viewer that view. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring our example. So I uploaded existing file, and I can go ahead and remove this. Delete it permanently, and I believe in order to build this I'm going to need a few references. So let's try to build it. So it's saying we need Windows base, presentation core, and presentation framework. So we're going to continue to factor it out here. So we're going to do people viewer view model, which needs to be passed to whoever is instantiating this view. And then what we do here is we simply say that this data context is equals to our view model. So our people viewer is our bootstrapper here, and in here is where we can make changes and do things that needs to get done on the startup of the application. So what we do here, we override our onStart or onStartup method, and we inserted things that we need to instantiate in order for this to run. So finally, this is the place where we create we make the creation of our service repository and our people viewer model. So we need two references. We need one for service repository and one for our view model, which is inside of the application view. So I'll go ahead and add those. Okay, so to demonstrate, I just moved it up to the people viewer, and in this app I instantiated all of our repository and interface, and I ran it just to make sure that it runs and compiles before I move it into our composition root, which is what I'm going to go ahead and do next. So the first thing, in order to do the composition root, I need to go ahead and create another solution folder here, and we'll call this just application. So this project, people viewer, I'll just grab it and move it into the application. Here I'll go ahead and add another project called peopleviewer.view. before this will work with XAML, I need to go ahead and add 3 references here. Actually, I added 4 references: Windows Base, System.xaml, Presentation Core, Presentation Framework. And now what I'm going to try to do is bring this file over by using the right click, add existing item. Now we moved it to People Viewer. Tab that we're looking for XAML. And we just need this file, People Viewer window, add. So it should be here now. We should be able to delete this file. So now we created the another project, which is our bootstrap, and it does all our composition. It's called composition root. We can go ahead and factor this into another method, and that's an edit refactor extract method, and we'll call it compose objects. And we can go ahead and run it, make sure that it builds and runs the way it's supposed to. And here it is. So this is how we implement the dependency injection.